Man Our Nation, are you ready for the best damn sports show on the radio? Man Our Nation, rise up.
You don't want to be every time, no. I would like to personally welcome you to Man Hour After Dark. Say that thing. While I bring you the host, Mike, Buck, and Cone. You know who's coming to the sports talk than what you about to hear right here. I second that.
Go. You know that it's us when we talking about sports. Giving you facts on the field to the core. Tune in, we need the support. 1 hour too short, still listen some more. On all your stations, not dropping no music. Stripes like Adidas, but Nike just do it. Down 4 in the 4th, we go for the win. Michael 2 seconds, we taking it in. Buck, Mike, and Combs, you know what's going on. Man, now we're after dark, no LA, we the big spark. No 4th and inches won't cut you short. Got the best talking, it's all sports. Buzzing more than buzzer beaters. We coming live all through your speakers, go.
What is up, Man Our Nation? Welcome to the show. We got a nice show lined up for you again tonight. We got no Buck. We got no Wyatt. We got no Combs. What are we going to do with this show tonight? You're stuck with me for an entire 2 hours tonight, folks. It's me and you. That's a complete lie because nobody honestly really wants to listen to me talk for 2 straight hours. However, we do have a special guest with us tonight. The one, the only Wayne G from Infinity Sports. Wayne, happy to have you here. Thank you for saving my skin tonight.
Yeah, excited to be here. I think it's kind of a cool thing to be back on the Man Hour. I've been on before as a guest to debate with Wyatt about whether or not LeBron James was better than Wilt Chamberlain.
Which was the most one-sided argument ever, and Wyatt got destroyed.
He really did. I actually felt bad for him because I think my favorite comment was I think his grandmother wrote in like, "It's okay, you can't win them all."
That was a pretty epic beat, and it's literally one of those things that we have talked about with him. We're like, he's like, Wilt wasn't that good. The guys would smoke in the locker room. You give Wilt today's nutrition and workout stuff, Wilt still dominates the NBA today.
Yeah, he really was hung up on the whole smoking in the locker room thing, and I was like,
right.
I don't think Wilt was a smoker. He's like, but his teammates were.
I mean, he's young, he's naive, he's got a bright future ahead of him at least, though. So you get to be the man tonight because we are now live apparently over in Britain. We are live in the UK now. I didn't know that until, well, Buck told us that. So welcome to the inaugural show that's getting aired over in the UK.
Wow, that's exciting. We're going to be talking about a lot of football, but sorry, guys, it's American football today.
All American, like not a lot of Olympic talk today. So they may tune out right away on us, or maybe we got, they keep talking about putting a team in London. So maybe they'll, want to tune into our American football. If you ask me, it's still more of a novelty thing over there than anything. Then there's no way that they could ever put an NFL team in London.
No, it's definitely something that, they like to see it because they're like, what's all this hullabaloo about over in America with the football? And it comes over, it's 1 game a year, so it's a big deal. It's kind of like, I guess, when we get, FC Barcelona comes over and plays the MLS All-Stars and beats them 7-0. It's just kind of a novelty to go watch.
I mean, yeah, and they get stuck watching the Jaguars every year because the Jaguars could be the best team in the NFL and probably still couldn't sell out a home game.
Well, maybe Trevor Lawrence is going to turn that all around.
Maybe. I'm having hope, and I really want him to not be a bust because Combs dogs on him about that he's going to just be the worst quarterback ever.
We've had that argument. He compares him to Ryan Leaf, and the thing I always throw back at Brandon is I say, what has Trevor Lawrence ever done to give you pause? Because he's excelled at every single thing in college. There's no red flags.
Right. And that's where, and him and I disagree. Where I'm like, if you're going to make that comparison, Zach Wilson is more likely to be a Ryan Leaf than Trevor Lawrence is.
Yeah, just a one-and-done guy. A guy who had one good year. The year before, he was probably a 5th-round pick. Although, the same thing with Joe Burrow. Joe Burrow had his junior year at LSU. He was a nobody and then exploded, his senior year.
And now they just announced he's going to sit the preseason, even though he's been cleared for football activities.
Well, it's a safe play.
Yeah, I agree. That's a lot of money you have invested in one player. You want to make sure he's ready to go.
Yeah, number one overall pick.
So speaking of ready to go, OU and Texas are all but gone to the SEC out of the Big 12. They have said, though, they will honor their commitment to play in the conference through, I believe, is 2024-25. They said they will not bail until that contract is up. Do you think this is the smart play for both of those schools?
I don't understand it. So I understand that the SEC is the big conference and it's a big money conference. And when you look at how much money the different conferences made last year, the Big 12 is the lowest paid of all of them. Even the ACC made more than the Big 12. So they go to the SEC. They bring their TV rights with them because they already said that we're not renewing our TV rights with the Big 12.
Yep.
But it's still a minimal amount of money versus what they're getting now, maybe an extra 10 million. I mean, when we're talking about hundreds of millions, is that really a big deal? And in terms of playing, you're going to a conference. The Texas last year, I think, was 7-5. That equates to 3-8 in the SEC.
Ask Texas A&M how that worked out for them.
Yeah, exactly. Oklahoma hasn't won a playoff game. They're going to be toast in the SEC.
I think this is the Texas I can see because Texas. I liken Texas to the rich kids that think that they're gangster, and they're not. They're going to go to the SEC and get destroyed. And Oklahoma legitimately has a shot to make the playoff every single year, but it's because they play in the Big 12. They're going to go to the SEC and become an average team, and it's going to hurt that program. I think this is a big mistake for the Oklahoma Sooners going to the SEC because now they're going to get exposed.
A big mistake for both of them, like I said, because now you're competing also recruiting-wise with the other SEC teams. I know Texas, you would think, how can Texas not put together a team in the Big 12 every year to compete when all the best players in the country come from Texas or California, who's right next to you, and yet you can't seem to recruit well enough to win your own Big 12. Now you're going to the SEC, and you're going to be recruiting against Alabama and Georgia and Florida. Yeah, it's not going to work out well.
Yeah, it's not. It's a terrible decision all the way around. But with those two leaving, what happens to the rest of the Big 12? Do you think that they try to absorb, the Mountain West, the Western Athletic Conference? I don't know. It seems like it changes names like every 3 years. So do you think they try to absorb those teams from there, like your Boise States?
It could be that's the way it's trending, where we're just going to go down to maybe 6 power conferences and that's it. Maybe even 4 and that's it. You're going to have the Big 10, the Big 12, the SEC, and the ACC maybe, or the Pac-12. So you could have 5. But I could see the Pac-12 splitting that Mountain West with the Big 12. I think, the Big 10 probably goes out and gets Notre Dame, right? That's the big name out there. I think why would you play in the ACC if you can play in the Big 10 other than to win? So I think that, we're going to see it get narrowed down from about 10 conferences all the way down to probably 5.
See, and I don't think Notre Dame joins the Big 10 just because if they get put in the Eastern Conference, they're going to have to play Ohio State almost every single year. And they're not going to want to do that because that legitimately would hurt their chances to make the playoff every single year. Notre Dame, I don't see. I do see the Big 10 making a play for Iowa State to join. I potentially see them also trying to absorb Kansas State and Kansas just to kind of even things out. And then they would have to realign a little bit the divisions. Like could see maybe like Illinois and Northwestern going over to the Eastern Division if they absorb 2 of those 3 teams. I just don't really think – I think for sure – I think Iowa State is almost a slam dunk to join the Big 10. And then they have to move one of their teams from the West over to the East.
Yeah, I mean, they may have to do that. And like I said, it's just the way it's trending. If I was going to see any team joining the SEC and having luck, it would be Clemson. And then I could probably see Auburn leaving the SEC and going to the ACC.
Yeah, I 100% could see that. I could see Auburn also, too, saying, hey, wait a minute. All these people are bailing out of the Big 12. I could see them potentially trying to join the Big 12 instead because automatically they're going to elevate their own status and have a chance to win that conference every single year.
Possibly. I think that the trouble they would have is switching conferences is the recruiting, like we were talking about.
Yeah.
Because right now, if the kids don't go to Alabama, they go to Auburn. At least that's the way it used to be. Maybe not so much anymore. But they were, simpatico. And now you're going to move to another conference. Now you can't say, well, Alabama, Alabama's not going to be recruiting the kids you're recruiting. You're going to be recruiting against not Texas anymore, but Oklahoma State. It's a different recruiting field.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I mean that makes sense as well. It's an interesting thing, and I think you are correct. Where all these power conferences are eventually going to eat up the smaller conferences, and you're going to see 30-team divisions, and it's going to be 5 divisions, and they may break it down to like, okay, now we have 4, divisions, and then we'll have conferences. It'd be almost like an NFL team in 5 different parts of the country, or having an NFL in like 5 different parts of the country. And to me, that would feed more into the college football playoff as well for setting it up, especially if they expand it.
Yeah, and that's, I think, the only way that you can use the playoff to actually curtail this behavior, because what you do, and I had the suggestion a few episodes on my show, was you make it so that the winner of every conference gets an automatic bid into the 12-team playoff, and then you have 2 wild cards, which would most likely come from the SEC or the Big Ten. But that way, if you're in the Mountain West, if you're in the Big Sky, if you're in the Big East, right, you still get a bid. Boston College, they're in the ACC now, but let's say Boston University could make the playoff, and what you do then is now these bigger teams, might say, hey, why do we have 8 of us here in the SEC? Why doesn't one of us go to the Mountain West? One of us go to the Big East, and now you start to see that talent get spread out a little bit more because teams want that chance at the playoff. Because
why that will never work? It makes too much damn sense. That's why it'll never work. So, and in the end, it'll all come down to the dollars that the conference can offer to those teams. So, and that's what we're seeing now, and that's why you're getting the attrition that you're getting now, because like you said, like Oklahoma, it really doesn't make sense because they're only getting an extra $10 million. But now like an extra $10 million a year to like a Boise State, that's a big difference for that program, because like basically football is all they have, like much like Gonzaga. Gonzaga's got basketball. Like for them to join a big conference, that's university changing money for your programs.
Right, exactly. And that's why you would see, if you did this with the conference champions, Boise State stays put because, like, hey, I can win this conference every single year. It's some of those smaller schools in the bigger conferences that would be bigger fish in a smaller pond. Those are the ones that would be switching out to the smaller conferences.
I'd be cheering for like a Stony Brook to make the college football playoff at that point. Be like, they need to be D1, baby. So, I mean, we've kind of covered that. Do you think, though, that we're done seeing any of the movement? It's like I said, the only one that's kind of remained silent in this has been the Big Ten a little bit and the ACC. Those are the only two. And even though the ACC's name was thrown in there as part of the ones that are going to start picking people out of, or picking teams out of the Big 12, I haven't really heard much of a peep out of them about this is who we're looking to add. But the initial reports were the SEC and the ACC were the ones that were going to start plucking people.
And I don't think the ACC plucks from the Big 12. I don't think the Big 12 is going anywhere. I think, if anything, they're going to add to their lineup. They're going to replace these teams. The ACC, if they were going to pick from anywhere, if they were going to absorb, it would be the Big East.
Right. But still, you got team. Would you not maybe potentially want to go after like a West Virginia that left the Big East and went to the Big 12? Geographically, it would make sense to bring them back.
It would geographically, yeah. I just, looking at the teams, I mean, the only team I would be interested in now that Texas is gone and Oklahoma's gone, I think the only team I'd really be interested in is Baylor, maybe. Baylor,
Oklahoma State, and Texas Tech. The rest of them are just not very well. Iowa State, but is Iowa State really an up-and-coming program, or have they just had a couple of years of a good run? Like, we all know how like the cycles go in college football. So, having grown up as a Wisconsin Badger fan, I've seen some terrible football in the 80s, and it took a lot of years for them to build that program up to what it was. So, could they be building something? Absolutely. Could they be like a Northwestern that has a good 2 or 3 year run? Absolutely.
So I wouldn't even be surprised if we saw the Big 12 counter this maybe by stealing somebody from the Big 10, just start an all-out war and maybe go after Michigan while they're weak and hurting right now.
That would be interesting. That would be actually fun to sit and watch to see what the Big Ten would do. Honestly, I think at this point, the Michigan stock is so down, the Big Ten would be like, bye.
Well, no, because I think that there's still basketball. I mean, we're thinking just football, but there's still basketball. And the Michigan baseball team is always good. But yeah, in terms of football, it's definitely with Harbaugh there. It's a joke. But you also have that Michigan-Ohio State game where even if they're both 0-8, it's still a draw. So I don't think they would want to let them go. But I could see Michigan saying, listen, we're not going to win against these guys. So let's go to the new Big 12. And our biggest competition is Baylor or Oklahoma State.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. So with that, we are going to hit our first break, and we will be back in 2.5 minutes. You got Wayne G and I tonight. So we will see you guys in 2.5 minutes. And we are back. Still here. Back with Wayne G. Getting ready for the next segment. So now we're going to move on to something near and dear to my heart. Something I actually know a little bit about. We're going to move on to Aaron Rodgers.
All right.
We're going to do a little discount double check here because we're going to go for a twofer on this one. So Rodgers is all but assured to come back and play for the Green Bay Packers this year with a revised contract, allegedly. So allegedly he will have an out after 2022 to get out of his contract and be either retire or become a free agent. He also are looking to have contingencies put in place into the contract to, quote, rectify the differences that he is having with management. How much of this are you buying, Wayne?
I mean, I'm buying that he's coming back because they're saying the contract is all but done. I don't think he wants to go anywhere else. And I said this a number of times. There's nowhere he could go that's a better situation than Green Bay. They went 13-3 last year. They're 13-3 the year before that. You're going to go to the Broncos, who were 5-11 last year and have one of the worst defenses in the NFL. You know, how much better are you going to be there? So Green Bay is the best spot for him. He knows that. I don't buy the rectifying the differences because my understanding is the differences are that he doesn't have a say in who they draft, who they sign. He wants to be the GM essentially or have the air of the GM. I don't think they're going to give him that in the contract.
And this is where I side with Rodgers a little bit. because they went and drafted Jordan Love without even saying anything to him. And I agree. I would be mad if I've given my loyalty and my life to that franchise. I go out and win games. I do everything I can for you. We play buddy buddy. He's the consummate team player. He's a professional. Like, even when he was angry, you never really heard nothing because he's not going to air it out like that. And then you draft a quarterback without saying anything to him, and he says, "Hey, man, that wasn't cool," and you tell him to shut up and play football because that's their job. Yeah, I'm on his side on that one because loyalty goes a long way, and it's a two-way street. He has been loyal to you and shown you loyalty and won you a lot of football games and made that city and that team a lot of money. And you handled it that way. If that is actually the way it happened, I can see where he has a little bit of a grievance with whether it be Mark Murphy or Brian Gutekunst.
I disagree. So I agree more with them because it is their job to pick the team, and they've done a good job of picking players to go around him. Like I said, they're going 13-3, the large part because of him, but they're building around him as well. They typically wouldn't draft a quarterback in the first round. Green Bay's MO is they draft O-line, D-line, corner in the first round. It's just more valuable positions. But I understand they've got an eye for he's not going to be here forever. And I go back to this is why people like Tom Brady better than they like Aaron Rodgers, right? Because when Bill Belichick drafted Jimmy Garoppolo, and then in the press conference, he said, we all know Tom's age and contract situation, his age, which was like 10 years ago.
Right.
But he said that in a press conference. He's like, this is why we drafted him. Tom's getting old. And Tom Brady didn't say boo about it. You know, he just said, hey, got a job to do. Go out and win. I'm not going to mentor the kid, but it's like, I'm just here to win. He's going to learn from the system. I feel like Aaron Rodgers could have taken that high road too. But again, it was a culmination of things. It wasn't just Jordan Love. It was them not getting him a receiver. It was them not getting him the pieces that he thought he needed, even though they disagreed with him. And that's why I don't think they're going to give him any concessions in this contract, because they have a different philosophy on who should be around him. And they're not going to sacrifice that because I feel like they've been doing a good job.
And I've said it before, and this is where my logic of me kicks in. When it comes down to it, it's still a business. They run it like it's a business. They don't really care what your name is. It's still a business. Every year, and there again, because obviously I'm a Packer fan, and I have a lot of Packer fan friends, every year you hear the belly aching of, oh, they let so-and-so go, and they let that walk because they're a fan favorite. No, they looked at it the dollars and cents wise, and it didn't fit. They knew they weren't going to be able to do it. Like, I'm like, at the end of the day, it's still a business, and they still have to run it like that because guess what? Players' careers ends. This franchise probably is not, so they're going to be around a lot longer than that fan favorite player.
Well, and that's what's so surprising for me is that the fans have sided with the player here. Because, again, I'm in New England, so we always say, in Bill we trust. If Bill wants to draft a kicker in the first round and, you know, we need a quarterback, in Bill we trust. He knows what he's doing. The guy's got 8 Super Bowl rings, 6 with the Patriots. So we're not going to second guess him on his decisions. But here we have a fan base that doesn't trust their general manager, doesn't trust their head coach, because obviously they've gone through several of them, whereas obviously as a Patriots fan, I've had the same coach for the last 20 years. So there's not that trust factor in the front office. So we've got to trust the one guy who has been here the longest. I just caution fans, don't trust players to have input on who gets drafted, because players play and front office guys do their scouting. If Aaron Rodgers wants to be a scout, I'm sure they'll hire him for a lot less money than he's making, and he can be a scout for them.
I'm sure he probably could still be a scout and probably still get a retirement package that's more than what you and I make in a year put together. I would like to know what the retirement package is for when you make $37.5 million a year.
Yeah, I'm sure it's a pretty nice pension.
So after this story broke that Rodgers was coming back, all but done, like 2 hours after that, another story broke that Devontae Adams is willing to re-sign with Green Bay and open up contract talks again on an extension, when 2 days ago he had said, contract talks are done. We're breaking everything off. Again, it's hard not to read a lot into it. And to me, like, you know, the peanut butter to the jelly at that point, like, He obviously knows Aaron. Like, is there something else in the works? And all of a sudden he's like, yeah, let's get this deal done because Aaron might be around beyond 2022.
He might be, but I think they want to play together, obviously. And it reminds me, again, going to a Patriots analogies, when they went to go trade Gronk to the Lions, they had a trade in place. Gronk said, you trade me, I'm retired. I'm done. I'm not playing anymore. And then Tom goes, he follows Tom to Tampa. So he'll play with Tom as long as Tom wants him to play with him. But I think that's the same thing with Devontae Adams here. I don't think he wants to play with another quarterback. I don't know if he's in love with Green Bay as much as he is with Aaron. I wouldn't be surprised if their contracts quasi line up once all of the ink is dried, and the fact that they'll be free agents at the same time and can choose where to go at the same time.
And there again, the logic, the fan in me wants to disagree with this, but the logic in me is like, that frees up a whole lot of cap room losing those two guys. I'm like, you're not really sitting too bad if you're clearing like $60 million in cap space.
No, exactly. You can go out and get other free agents. You can make trades or do whatever you got to do. Jordan Love will take over eventually as the starter. He's going to get the Aaron Rodgers treatment, so to say, where he's got to sit behind the starter for 2 or 3 years, just like Aaron Rodgers had to do. And that's where I think the bitterness began. I really feel it. He thought he was coming in, he was going to sit 1 year behind Favre and then take over as the starter. And when that didn't happen, that was the very beginning of this souring between him and the front office.
I kind of agree with that, but I think he kind of knew the situation. It was Favre because the organization let Favre dictate every single year. Because Favre would be like, I don't know if we're going to come back. I might retire. Da-da-da-da-da-da. And they would waffle. They would let him waffle and never stand up to him at that point. Until 2008, when he said, I'm retired. He sat there on March 28th, 2008. The only reason I remember that is because it was my birthday. And he said, I'm retiring. I'm retired, blah, 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 blah. At that point, they took the offense and put it around Aaron's skill set. And that's what they implemented. And then come training camp time, and like a week into training camp, Favre's like, oh, I want to come back and play. And they're like, well, we've already installed the offense around Aaron and have been doing it all off season. Like, you can come back, but you're not guaranteed to be the starter. And that's when he kind of threw a fit. Like, the situations are similar, but they're completely different. Honestly, I feel the end result for both of them is going to be the exact same, though. Just because I'm like, I look at the Favre situation, I'm like, we're having freaking deja vu. How did this organization not learn from the first fiasco?
Well, I wonder if that's where some of the bitterness from Aaron Rodgers comes too, is that he got to watch Favre with all this power. And now he's like, hey, I've been here. I've won a Super Bowl. I threw for 48 touchdowns last year with Devontae Adams and a bunch of practice squad players. So I should have some say in things. And they're like, no, shut up. They never said that to Favre.
No. They're again, different GM, different time, different era. Like, well, and there again, Ted Thompson was the GM. Well, I'll say he was the GM. He was the guy that was just sat in that chair because obviously he never really did anything in free agency. But the one thing I give the guy could draft. The guy could make good picks. And for as much as people want to dig on Goody, like everyone's like, oh, Gutekunst is terrible, terrible, terrible. This is the same guy that picked Jair Alexander, who is one of the top cornerbacks in the entire league. Like, that's the one thing that bugs me as a fan and with fans sometimes is we pick and choose when we want to like our people and when we don't. Like, if a guy, it comes down to the old adage of you can do 9 things right, but everybody's going to remember the one thing you did wrong.
Oh, of course, especially in professional sports. It doesn't matter what you do. You win, 18-0, you lose the last one. That's all anyone's going to remember.
Why? Who did that happen to?
All anyone remembers in New England, David Tyree holding the ball against his helmet is burned into our brains more than any other image in football.
I'm pretty sure that to this day, David Tyree could never set foot in Boston.
I don't think anyone holds any ill will. It was an amazing catch. I mean, I think Rodney Harrison, who was trying to rip his hand off the helmet, said, man, nothing you can do. It's amazing. That was an amazing catch.
Oh, the poor Patriots, the Giants, the New York Giants are the Patriot killers.
Oh. Well, it almost happened 3 years in a row. Not to get too far off of the Green Bay thing, but obviously we had the Tyree catch. We had the Manningham catch against the Giants as well.
Yep.
And then Brady gave them that lead against Seattle. And, Malcolm Butler goes up and bats that ball down right into the arms of, I don't know if it wasn't Baldwin, I think Lockett maybe. It just like, it looked like he had batted the ball away, but it got tapped around, bounced off somebody's foot, and then ended up in his hands. And I thought, here it is again, another highlight catch. And fortunately, they didn't run Marshawn Lynch into the end zone.
Which, that, much like D-Day, that play will live in infamy forever. When Marshawn was just chewing people up and spitting them out that entire game.
Let's throw the ball.
The dumbest play call ever. All right, we're getting ready here to hit our second break. We will be back in 2.5 minutes. Wayne G, we will see you in 2.5, my friend.
All right.
Welcome back to the Man Hour Radio Show. I was trying to do like a little like sexual chocolate, like welcome back, and it did not work at all. It went right away.
Randy Watson.
Yeah. Oh, great movie. That is such a great movie.
Did you like the sequel?
I have not watched it yet.
I did. It's a little cheesy, a little bit on the cheesy side.
I'm like, am I going to ruin the nostalgia of like the first one? Or, I mean, is it just Eddie Murphy and Arsenio Hall trying to get a paycheck?
I mean, I don't know, because Eddie Murphy's still a name, and obviously he did Dreamgirls not that long ago. He was, I think, nominated for an Academy Award for that. So
and he's Donkey.
And he's Donkey, right? So he's still a big name. Arsenio obviously is nobody right now, so this was a nice thing for him. They got a bunch of Saturday Night Live alum in there, but the story, it wasn't as good as the original. I mean, it was okay. It wasn't awful. It just nowhere even close to the original.
Yeah, it's one of those things that I will watch eventually. But like, I'm one of those people like, man, I don't buy the hype on stuff. Like, and I don't, except unless it's Star Wars or Marvel stuff, then I'm all in. It's like, what? There's a new episode of Mandalorian on. It came out an hour ago and I didn't watch it. Like nice. That stuff I get into, but like all this stuff like that, I don't really get into. But yeah, put me in front of the Marvel universe on Disney Plus, and I'm probably not moving for the next few hours.
I'm a big Marvel guy myself. I was actually very excited to see that Charlie Cox, who plays Daredevil in the Netflix series, is going to be in No Way Home as Matt Murdock.
Oh, really?
Yep.
I didn't hear that one yet.
Yeah, so I was excited for that.
So we talked about my team, the greatest team in all of NFL history, the Green Bay Packers, greatest organization ever. I suppose we better talk a little bit about your team. We're going to do a little thing that we like to do here called buy, sell, and trade. Oh, excuse me, sleeper for the New England Patriots. We saved this just for you. Like, we planned this out. This was planned months ago. I'm just kidding. Just because Buck couldn't find a house to live in and everything's in turmoil. So it actually just worked out kind of nice. So we're going to do the New England Patriots tonight. So you're the guest, Wayne G. I'm going to let you start. Give me one player on the New England Patriots who you are buying for the 2021 season.
100% all in. I am buying Hunter Henry. They signed the two big tight ends this offseason, him and Jonnu Smith. Bill Belichick loves Hunter Henry. Can't stop raving about him when he was on another team, which is very rare for him to do because he doesn't like to talk about guys on other teams. But he raved and raved about Hunter Henry, got the chance to sign him, and he did. He's the bigger of the two tight ends at 6'5", 250. Like I said, what Josh McDaniels is going to do with that team and use those two tight ends similar to the Gronk and the Hernandez. They've got Aguilar on the outside.
Without the murders.
Without the murders, sure. And, neither of these guys has ever been used as a primary deep threat before. They've all been short yardage tight end grabs. What McDaniels is going to do with these two guys is make them deep threats. He's going to make them wide receivers, like Jimmy Graham type tight ends. I 100% believe that we could see a 1,000-yard, 10-touchdown season out of Hunter Henry, which would be double the production he had last year in the Chargers. So all in, I'm buying Hunter Henry.
So I like my pick, but it's going to be controversial.
Okay.
Just based off of the history of the New England Patriots. I am buying all in on Damian Harris this year at running back. I think this is the year that Belichick finally starts to lean towards one running back kind of as his lead guy, mostly because you don't have the stable of running backs that New England usually does. You've basically got Harris, you've got Sony Michel, and James White now. And Michel, you can count on playing about half the games so far at this point in his career. It's like he's always hurt. He misses at least half the season, it seems like, every single year. I think Damian Harris is a little bit more durable. And, James White obviously is probably one of the best third down backs in the league. He's obviously going to be a receiving back. I would even put him in more on short yardage situations as well, because I think James White can still get those yards. So I am going to buy Damian Harris. He's going to be a 1,000-yard rusher this year. I don't know if I'm going to put him at 10 touchdowns, but I'm going to put him at 6 to 8 touchdowns on the year, because I think James White will still see a couple of those touchdowns as they get down close to the goal line.
I hate to see you spend your money that way, because they did draft Ramondre Stevenson out of Oklahoma in the 3rd round, and he's a guy who's going to get a lot of carries as a power back, like a LeGarrette Blount type. And so I think he's going to take those power roles. Sony Michel is still going to be there. Harris is kind of the third guy, I think, even though he took over for Michel on the depth chart. Michel had back-to-back 900 and something yards rushing. He has had health concerns as a running back. He's in his 4th season, which is kind of your last season with the team. But I really think that Stevenson's going to take a bunch of carries, which is going to take away from Harris. Michel's still going to get some carries, and James White still gets a carry here and there. I do agree that Harris is more of a dual threat back than any of the other guys. He can do both. But I would still expect him to maybe, on a good season, have 650 yards rushing.
See, and my concern with the Stevenson thing is that he's still currently hurt.
Yeah.
How healthy is he going to be going into the season? And there again, as well as I do, a rookie, if you as a rookie missing time sets you behind the 8 ball a ton. I don't think as much so for a running back, because it's go run this way or go run that way. And for them it's more, are they reading the blocks correctly? Are they being patient to let their holes develop, stuff like that. But I do think if he misses time, that's valuable time lost, and it's going to just put him down the depth chart just a little bit. But I like Harris. He's actually, if you watch our fantasy football part of the show, which for only $2.99 a month, you get access to our fantasy football show. You will hear Damian Harris's name mentioned in the very first one. So
wow.
he's one of my late round picks that nobody's really thinking about, just because of the situation in New England where Belichick does not like to give it to one guy. Like 1 week it'll be James White, 1 week it may be Michelle, 1 week it's Harris. Hell, we can go with J.J. Taylor 1 week. We can go with Brandon Bolden 1 week. Throw everybody in there because you just don't know. Belichick is a mastermind of figuring out what running back goes best against what defense. I will give him that. He is a master at that.
He is. And what I'm curious to see him do is see if he can, in the past when they had Tom Brady, your running game was your short passing game. You know, the little 4 or 5 yard dink and dunk passes, that was your run. And now you've got a quarterback who can't hit the broadside of a barn. And so you kind of got to rely on that running game. You still have maybe the best defense in the NFL, but you've got this horrible quarterback. You're going to have to ground and pound. I think the question really does come down to, has he given up on Sony Michel? It seemed like it last year, but maybe it was just injury related.
Could be. So now let's move on to the sell portion. What player are you selling on the Patriots this year?
This was such an easy pick. This isn't even a sell. I'm throwing this guy in for free and I can sell somebody else. He goes along with it. And that is Cam Newton. I just mentioned it. The guy is absolute trash. I didn't like it when they signed him in the first place. He's got a long, slow wind up and delivery. He throws really hard, nice wobbly passes to the receivers. He's just not a very good thrower of the football. Now, I know that Brandon and Mike, they like to say that Lamar Jackson's just a running back. Well, at least Lamar Jackson can throw a nice tight spiral. He's accurate throwing the ball. Cam Newton is not. He is literally a fullback on the team. He runs the Wildcat. What other quarterback in the league runs the Wildcat? You know, he's the fullback in the Wildcat. So I'm selling on him. Let's give it to Mac Jones. They went out and drafted him in the first round for a reason. He completed 77% of his passes last year for 350 yards a game. And I know it was on Alabama, but the kid also runs a 4.79 40, which is what, Trevor Lawrence runs. And what's funny is nobody ever knocks Trevor Lawrence for not being athletic, but they crap all over Mac Jones. Obviously, Trevor Lawrence has the much better arm, but Mac Jones is going to be the starter day one. I'm selling on Cam Newton. I wouldn't even be surprised if they cut him completely.
Way to steal my pick. Now I'm going to go somewhere else. So I'm going to go with another controversial one. I'm selling Stephon Gilmore.
Oof.
Mostly
player of
because
the year.
I don't think he's going to be with the team come week one. I think the big talk is that him and Xavier Howard are both pushing for trades. Belichick does not like anything that upsets the balance of his team. And if Gilmore becomes enough of a nuisance, I think Belichick does not care and will pull the trigger and trade him. I think we are selling Stephon Gilmore out of New England. I think he's still a good cornerback. I think he's still a top 10 cornerback. However, I just think with the way Belichick is and the Patriot way, if he's starting to rock that boat, Belichick's going to get rid of that distraction. So I am going to sell Gilmore just because I think Belichick pulls that trigger.
I think it's a good logic in the selling of him because they have the horses in the stables. I think J.C. Jackson is an elite corner. He's going to step up again this year. He went out and he signed Jalen Mills, who's a corner / safety, does a little bit of everything. They're fine at the cornerback position, but reason I don't think it's a sell is I don't think Belichick gets value from selling Gilmore. His value is really low right now. He should be a first-round pick is what you should be able to get for him. But I would be surprised if you get maybe a conditional second. That's a third, but turns into a second depending on games played. And I don't know if Belichick pulls the trigger on that kind of return.
See, and I think if somebody comes and offers, and it depends on the team. If the Jets come and offer you a second, would you take that? Because it's probably going to be a high second-round pick.
As a Jets or Patriots fan, I don't think I would take a first-round pick from the Jets for Stephon Gilmore. You do not want to play him twice a year.
I'm just using it like a team that literally has no chance, though, of probably doing anything. I mean, hell, let's say not that Houston would do something this smart, because I still think that they're stuck with like the ghost of Bill O'Brien for some of the deals they make. Like they traded for Anthony Miller yesterday, like which made no sense with they had a deep receiving core the way it was. I don't even know what the details of that trade was. Did they ever announce what like pick it? Like I just heard it was a conditional draft pick. That's it.
Yeah, I'm not sure what the get was, but I know that definitely Nick Caserio is on the hot seat because he's the reason that Deshaun Watson wants out of there.
Right. And Deshaun, yeah, because Deshaun was a little upset that he got no input into the say of who was going to be the next GM. And
Right.
he had allegedly put together a list and gave it to management and said, these are the guys that I think would be great for us. And that's where I say, and I actually wrote about it on our webpage, on our blog, about is the NFL becoming the new NBA where players are getting more input into how the team is constructed and put together about, I think this guy would fit around me and this guy would fit around me. And I do think we are eventually headed that way because it seems to be the evolution of the way players are getting power.
I don't know if we're headed that way only because of the way the contracts are structured where they're not guaranteed. NBA is. So that's why they have that power. I think if you have the opportunity to just cut a guy and not pay him the remainder of his contract, that's always going to keep him in check a little bit. I think with Deshaun Watson, they were trying to be nice. Like you were saying, Green Bay should have been nice to Aaron Rodgers and told him they're going to draft a quarterback. Deshaun Watson just wanted to be humored, and they didn't humor him at all. So, or maybe he thought he was actually going to have some say, even though he didn't. They were just trying to be nice. So yeah, you can have some say. Oh, that's a great list, Deshaun. We'll take that into consideration. And then he got upset. It's like, well, we weren't really being serious. Like, we're not going to let you pick the GM.
Well, I have an issue with them because a name you may know quite well, Jack Easterby. Like there is something with that guy because ever since he went to Houston, the guy was the team chaplain, and it was like now like the president of the team or whatever. Like something weird happened there. And ever since that happened, that this guy got some power, weird, dumb things, and everybody has wanted out of Houston.
Right.
So I'm like, I'm going to go Terrell Owens. If it smells like a rat and it looks like a rat.
Well, and probably that's the case because I know a lot of people blame Bill O'Brien, but Deshaun Watson had actually said he would come back and play for Bill O'Brien, that O'Brien wasn't the problem.
Yeah. I make fun of Bill O'Brien a lot on this show. Like I always joke, like I've got my Bill O'Brien magic 8-ball and like, okay, I've traded Deshaun Watson to the Patriots for a warm beer and a cold hot dog from Fenway. Like just because seems like the deals that Bill O'Brien was making, like when he would trade it DeAndre Hopkins for essentially like a bag of like popcorn.
Well, they got a second-round pick for him, and they got David Johnson, who I think that he was putting all of his eggs in David Johnson's basket because when he was healthy last before he traded for him, the guy was a 2,000-yard all-around back.
But that was also 2016.
Right, so that's what I'm saying. And then he had some injury issues. So I think that he was hoping, oh, he's fully healthy. I'm going to get a 2,000-yard back. It doesn't work that way.
Right. Yeah. Well, and we talked about that last night, and I kind of said, I'm like, well, the first game of the season, he looked like the old David Johnson. And like I remember the announcer making the comment of, wow, maybe Bill O'Brien did know what he was doing when he traded for David Johnson. And he just didn't do anything the rest of the year.
Nope. He was a pick for a lot of guys in like a second round of their fantasy draft.
Not me. Thank you. Thank you for helping me win my league again. I've won my league last couple of years. And if I didn't win it, I've finished in the top 4. But last year, I think I got lucky with a couple of my picks. So in 2018, my league, it's a 12-team league, and we've been doing this league for a long time. I went undefeated. I went 15-0 in a 12-team league. My first round pick, Alvin Kamara. My second round pick, CMC. The league was over after that for me.
Yeah, a lot of people lost their shirt on CMC. He was like a top 2 or 3 pick.
Yeah. I mean, he was the most fantasy leagues. He was the number 1 pick. Yeah. So, Kamara was a higher pick, and he was injured too. So, that's the one area I really struggled in. Like, I think our league, we start 3 receivers or tight ends, any combination you want. And my 1 and 2 receivers were Devontae and Stephon Diggs. So it didn't matter that my running backs were terrible. I started most of the year. I started Kenyon Drake and Chase Edmonds in the same backfield because you never knew who was going to go off that week, but they would always split carries.
Right. Yeah, I always finish in the bottom 3 of my fantasy football thing, so I just have the worst luck ever. Everybody gets hurt, and it's led me to my belief, and I've talked about it on my show a lot, is never draft a running back. Not in fantasy. In fantasy, you have to draft a running back in the first round, but in real life in the NFL, don't take a running back in the first round. Even guys like McCaffrey, you see like every year it's what could he do, and he doesn't do it. I mean, Carolina's on the hook for that contract for the next 2 seasons at least.
Yeah, and fantasy, and it all depends on the scoring in your league too. Like I play in a PPR league, so you get a running back that catches the ball in the backfield, and he's good. He's probably going to be a top 5 pick,
right?
So I argue back and forth about Zeke. Like I get Brandon and Buck going about how Zeke is trash.
You have that. I mean, he doesn't have his offensive line in front of him anymore, and when you don't have your quarterback, it's Andy Dalton. You're going to have some hard times.
Right, but Barry Sanders didn't have squad around him for a lot of time, and he still managed to put up good numbers.
Well, I mean, Barry Sanders,
a once-in-a-lifetime running back. It's an example.
And I think that Barry Sanders' supporting cast gets dogged way too unfairly because he had 2 all-pro offensive linemen on his team, and Herman Moore was a really good receiver, so they did have a passing game. Yeah, Johnny Morton. So they had a good passing game. It's just, but they get knocked. Like when people talk about Barry Sanders nowadays, it's like, oh, he was playing with a bunch of milkmen, and he really wasn't. He had a good team around him. Right.
So I don't know. Do you ever watch Herman Moore and Lomas Brown actually do a podcast together? It's actually pretty good. And it's fun to listen to them two talk about their playing days, like with Barry and stuff like that. It's actually a lot of fun.
Oh, nice.
So if you haven't checked that one out on Facebook, I think they're just on Facebook. If you haven't check that out. Like some of the stories are freaking hilarious, and they just have fun with it. I'm really trying to get one of those 2 or both of them to come on the show.
Oh, that'd be awesome.
So I am working on a couple of different ones. So Brandon may be happy. I'm working on a former Chicago Bear. We're just trying to work out the timing.
Nice.
So Brandon can fanboy over that one. So now we went way off in the weeds on that one, Wayne. Like we didn't even get to our sleeper for the Patriots yet. So let's kind of bring ourselves back onto the track. And who's going to be your sleeper for the New England Patriots this year?
My sleeper is a guy they drafted last year. Last year was his rookie year, and that is Josh Uche, a kid they drafted out of Michigan in the 2nd round. He only played 9 games last year. When he was at Michigan, he was just a beast. They talk about how when it comes to pass rush wins or win shares, he actually had more than Chase Young in college. He's got great hands, great technique. He's very athletic. He's raw, kind of like Jason Owe. He's very raw, but he's very, very good. And last year, PFF gave him the 2nd highest grade among edge rusher rookies behind Chase Young and the 16th highest grade of all NFL edge rushers. So he's a guy who's going to have 10 to 12 sacks this season.
Wow, 10 to 12.
Yep.
Is he starting this year?
I think he will be. Yeah. I mean, I know they went out and they re-signed Dietrich Wise to a big contract. They got Kyle Van Noy. They signed Matt Judon. Hightower's coming back. It's a loaded. Chase Winovich is there. It's loaded, but he's a pass rush specialist.
Right. And if you look at that, what he did last year on a defense that had 7 starters opt out?
Yep.
And was still a pretty stout defense without 7 starters.
Yeah, well, that's why I was saying the Patriots are probably going to have the best defense in the NFL this year because they return all those starters. They did great in free agency, and they did great in drafting. I mean, Christian Barmore, fantastic pick in the 2nd round. So I think they're going to be really, really good this year, and I would watch out for them. They're probably going to be the number 1 defense in terms of points allowed.
I would tend to agree with that. So mine, I think this kid finally busts out. but it's all going to be dependent on who's throwing in the ball. The guy that can't throw it 5 yards down the field or Mac Jones. And I am not a huge Mac Jones fan. I've always called it the Zach and Mac is trash show. So, although I do think that Mac Jones is a better quarterback than Cam Newton. I really hate to throw Cam under the bus like that because he was my quarterback on that 2018 undefeated fantasy football season.
Long days since those days.
Right. I'm going with Jacoby Meyer.
Okay.
I think Jacoby Myers is going to have an explosive season this year. And it's like I said, it all depends on who's throwing him the ball. But because Cam Newton can't throw the ball more than like 5 yards down the field, I see a lot of like slants. You're going to see a lot of like outs and ins. And I think Jacoby Meyer is going to be able to take advantage of that this year. And I think the kid's got the talent to be one of the receivers in the league that doesn't matter who's throwing him the ball is going to be explosive. I mean, last year he had no touchdowns, but he had 59 catches for 729 yards. 729 yards on 59 catches.
Right. In that crap offense with they're running sweeps with the quarterback.
Right. So to me, the kid's primed for a breakout season if they can get somebody that can get the ball into his hands. The kid's a playmaker. He averaged almost 15 yards a catch last year. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's not unrealistic if they can get him the ball and get the ball into his hands. He's pretty much considered the number one right now, I believe, in New England. And if they get him the ball, if they get his receptions up to like 100, the kid's probably going to put up, I would say he puts up almost 1,500 yards. And maybe I think he has a potential to go over 10 on touchdowns. Him and Hunter Henry. And there again, that's going to be the Jonnu Smith and the Hunter Henry effect, running it like Gronk and Hernandez did. It's going to open up things on the outside for those guys because people are going to get worried about those two tight ends underneath. So you're going to have to start cheating your safeties up. I think it's
yeah, and I agree with you that he is primed for a breakout season. He's going to be their number 2 to start the season because Nelson Aguilar is going to be their number 1 guy. He's kind of the burner. He's going to go out there and catch the deep ball. The reason Jacoby Myers is set up, and I'm glad you said 1,500 yards because it's going to make this sound less crazy when I say this, is that Jacoby Myers is as good as Justin Jefferson. And I'm not going to back off of that. And the reason being is that Jacoby Myers is one of the best route runners in all of the NFL. The Patriots do so well with guys who run routes like that. And the reason being because he was a quarterback in college, just like Julian Edelman. These guys know the playbook. They know where the option routes are supposed to be. They're on the same page as the quarterback when the ball's snapped on an option route. Like they both are psychically communicating with each other where they're going to be. And nobody runs cleaner routes in New England than Jacoby Myers. I mean, you said 100 receptions. I do think he's probably going to be like the 91, 92. But for an undrafted free agent, hey, Bill, that's why we trust you, my man.
I love everything about him. And it's like I said, because Cam Newton can't throw it 5 yards and because he does run such good routes, it's going to be a lot of outs and ins, 3-step out, 3-step in, whatever it is, whatever side of the field they're on. And Cam's going to have to get it out of his hands just because, otherwise if it's in his hands any longer than that, it's probably going to end up in the stands somewhere.
Right. Either in the stands or a fumble that he's going to stare at.
So with that, we are going to take our next break. And when we come back, Wayne, you get to shamelessly plug your show and anything you want to plug about your show. So,
all right.
Folks, we will be back in 2 minutes. welcome back. Am I as ugly as Chuck Woolery was?
I don't really remember Chuck Woolery, to be honest.
Senior synopsis. Yeah. Most likely. I'm just going, I have dementia. I got hit in the head a lot when I was a kid and ate a lot of paint chips. So, Wayne, this is your time to shine on the show because we appreciate you coming on, helping us out, getting the show going, making me look way better than I really am. So this is your time to shine. Tell us what you got going on. I felt like Hot Ones right there. Tell us what you got going on.
No, that's great. Yeah, I have my own show. It's the Infinity Sports Podcast. You can find us on social media at Infinity Sports Podcast on Facebook, on Instagram. We are at Sports Infinity 5 on Twitter. We are very interactive. The show's gone through a little bit of a facelift, I guess we'll call it, recently over the last month and a half or so. It used to be me and my co-host Sully. We talked about sports stuff for about an hour. Occasionally we'd have a guest. And then Sully kind of just stopped showing up to record. And so left me hanging high and dry. I was always scared to do a show solo because I feel like people who do that, like Colin Cowherd, they come across as pompous and like they love hearing themselves talk. And I started out, I did 2 shows and I realized that I had a lot of fun doing it, but I couldn't carry a full hour. So what I started doing now is for the first half of the show, I'll recap the week in sports. Second half of the show, I'll have an interview with a writer or a coach or an athlete. We've had Charlie Ward on the show. We've had William Gates, who is the subject of the movie Hoop Dreams, which is an award-winning documentary. I'm talking with Leo Mazzoni right now, the former pitching coach of the Atlanta Braves, to come on the show. So we get some pretty good guests, and that's what I try to do is half the show I'm talking about sports, basketball, baseball, whatnot. In the second half, we have an interview. And I love to debate. So if you find me on social media, let's have a hot point, hot topic. Wyatt won't talk to me. So
you don't want to debate LeBron versus Wilt now?
No, I think I'll talk all day about it. You know, obviously I'm a big Wilt guy. One of the reasons that Brandon had asked me to debate with Wyatt on that was because I do believe that Wilt is the greatest of all time, even over Jordan. I think that Wilt's the #1 player of all time. And so Brandon knew this. And when I guess he was debating Jordan and LeBron with Wyatt, and he reached out to me. He said, "Hey, do you want to come debate Wyatt, Wilt versus LeBron?" And I said, gladly. So it turned out to be a lot of fun, at least for me.
I mean, it was brutal for poor Wyatt to watch, but it's you don't win them all. Like like Nana said, you don't win them all. However, it's good to get knocked down a few times like that because you learn. You don't learn anything if you win all the time.
That's right. I think it was Thomas Edison, right? Said, I didn't fail 1,000 times. I learned 1,000 ways not to make a light bulb.
That's exactly it, right then and there. So, you got your interviews going on. Anytime you want to interview me, Brandon's stepdaughter said I was the greatest YouTuber out there last night. So,
oh, nice.
Actually, she doesn't really watch YouTube. She just said, well, you guys are the best YouTubers because she doesn't watch YouTube. I said she watches that tic-tac-toe.
I fall down the YouTube rabbit hole, if you will, and I've tried to figure out how to use this to my advantage on my podcast. But the rabbit hole I fall down is reaction videos, right? Like watching somebody react to hearing the sound of silence for the first time, or react to hearing, Journey for the first time, right? And I'm interested to get their take because I'm comparing it obviously with my take on it, which is that Journey is amazing. And so I thought, well, how can I do that with sports? Like, could I react to things happening in sports? And it just seems too cheesy in my brain for it to work.
I can see how, but the thing is people would eat it up though.
I guess that's why I'll watch a reaction video and then I'll watch that same person react to like 4 other videos. Right.
So I get sucked down kind of that same rabbit hole. What are the FBE? I don't even know what it stands for. But like all they do is watch reaction videos and then they record their reactions to the videos, or they'll do different challenges like you can't laugh challenge, or we've recreated like foods from different things. And like if you eat the food, there's a punishment at the end. Like I will sit and all of a sudden there's 3 hours of my life that I will never get back because I just sat there and watched them react to videos or try not to react to videos.
Well, and that's why I try to get guests that I feel are informative and they've been around whatever game they played for a long time and they know the game because it's interesting. And the reaction videos I watch are usually music related. So I'll watch, like I said, Journey, Disturbed, whatnot. But it's the people who are reacting to the videos are vocal coaches or, singing coaches. And I'm curious to get a professional's take because, like I said, when I hear, Wheel in the Sky by Journey, I'm like, God, Steve Perry can sing. But like, I'm just a fan. I don't sing. I don't know anything about that. So hearing a professional give their take on his singing, I love that it coincides with mine. And so I'm wondering if you could do something similar to that in sports where it's just like, hey, I'm going to do a video talking about this guy. And like I said, that's why I'm having Leo Mazzoni potentially come on is I want people to hear his take because he coached Greg Maddux. He coached Tom Glavine and John Smoltz, have his take on what they did and what he showed them how to do. But I also want to get his take on some guys that he didn't coach, like Nolan Ryan, who Brandon likes to dog on, and people like that, just to hear a professional. Hear that, Brandon? A professional's opinion on Nolan Ryan.
Brandon's a professional yeller.
Yeah, that's true. Professional hot takes. He overcooks them.
Right. And I'm going to agree with Drew here. Drew says, I get sick of seeing all these analysts all the time. I like to hear opinions and reactions. Yes. And I'm the same way. Like, analysts get paid to be analysts. And especially like when you get, sometimes I don't like it when you see the shift, when you get some of these former athletes that are now like analysts shift away from, looking at it objectively as a player to the fact that they've now conformed to whatever network they're on and toe that line where like they feel like they can't say what they really want to say or they're going to lose their job.
Or they're just becoming clickbait monsters, right? They're just looking to get that next click. And I wrote a blog about this on bellyupsports.com called Stephen A. Smith is not racist. He's just dumb. And the idea is that Stephen A. Smith, when he said what he said about Shohei Ohtani, which got all the clicks, right? And he had to do a fake apology. Well, people forget that a week before that, literally 7 days before he said that, he did a whole show where he raved about how MLB should be doing more to promote Shohei Ohtani. And then 7 days later said they shouldn't be promoting Shohei Ohtani. Why did he do that? Because the first take didn't get any clicks. So he had to try a different approach. And that's what I don't like. I mean, if you want to give it an analysis that's true, like me saying, hey, I think Wilt's the greatest, I'll stand by that to the day I die. I'm not going to turn around and say Sean Kemp's the greatest tomorrow to try to get extra clicks. Like, I don't believe that. I'm only going to say what I believe. But these guys, they say whatever they think will get them the most traffic.
Sean Kemp has no children.
He's sterile.
Travis Henry didn't sleep with anybody. He was a virgin. Because he had like 13 kids with like 12 moms or something like that.
Oh, Sean Kemp? Yeah, he was nuts.
So, well, Sean Kemp and Travis Henry.
Oh, Travis Henry, okay.
Because Travis Henry went to prison for like trafficking coke because he was trying to pay for all the kids.
Well, it's kind of, I guess, the opposite of, what is it, Phillip Rivers, who just has 14 kids with the one lady.
Right. But Dave Gummit, he doesn't swear.
That's right. In a house full of kids, I don't know how you could avoid it.
I don't know how he keeps his sanity in that household. I mean, like, I don't have any kids, and I shouldn't say it. I love my nieces to death. So, like, literally, I could never dog on kids because my nieces would all be able to come on the show and be like, yeah, we have him wrapped around our finger. Like, we want it, we get it. Doesn't matter.
As a parent, you just get inclined to yell at the kids. I yelled at somebody else's kid at a theme park, not on purpose. I saw this kid out of the corner of my eye climbing a fence, and I thought it was my kid. So I turned and I went, hey, don't do that. And the kid looked terrified. He got down, and I was like, oh, sorry, I thought you were my kid. And his dad came up. He's like, nope, it's a group effort.
It takes a village.
That's right.
So we've kind of covered a lot of different things tonight. So you want a good reason that you should continue to tune into this show?
I want a good reason.
We're going to Vegas next year. We are doing a live show. We're going to do live the NFL draft from Vegas. and we are going to take one lucky fan with us to Vegas. So if you're looking, you want to be in Vegas, I believe you have to be at least a $5.99 a month member or higher. We are going to start that on Halloween. Let the madness begin. We are going to run it through the end of January and pick a winner on Super Bowl Sunday. So if you want, you need to go to the webpage, check out what we got going on. I believe that the rules are you need to be at least a $5.99 member for at least 3 months. You need to be in the top 100 in our points. And there's another rule in there. I don't know. Buck did this. So I just know that we're all going to Vegas next year. And I'm like, okay, I'm in. So if we're going to do a live show from Vegas, they may not find me because I'll probably be at a poker table somewhere. Can I do it? Can I do it while I'm playing poker?
Well, I say this: there's no excuse not to sign up at least October 1st, right? For $6 a month to go through this contest. It's 4 months, right? So October, November, December, January. For $24, you can boo Roger Goodell. That's worth $2,400 to me.
Right. Or you could be the one person that cheers for him.
Yeah.
And then just have everybody look at you like, what are you doing?
You'll get on the camera on ESPN for sure.
Right. You'd be like,
yeah. Everyone will think you're a plant.
The last time I was on Vegas, I ended up on ESPN, or I was in Vegas, I ended up on ESPN. So,
how'd that happen?
So you got to tune in to get this full story. So, I was in the national championships for rock, paper, scissors.
Nice.
And no lie. And there's 286 people in the tournament, and I made the top 16. So from the top 16 on, they put you on. I think we were on ESPN or ESPN2. So we had Trey Wingo, and I can't remember who the other ESPN host was like calling the thing. So I got to hang out with like Trey Wingo for like a couple hours. And then Phil Roberts, who's a professional poker player, was the referee. So, I made it onto ESPN because of rock, paper, scissors. So I played rock, paper, scissors on ESPN, which there is YouTube evidence of this.
Now, is there a strategy to winning, or is it really just luck?
So everybody's like, it's just luck. It's just luck. No, everything can be done psychologically. And that's kind of what I did. There is a psychological thing to it because, a lot of times people will throw certain things and you can always tell off the first throw. Like if you throw something, say you and I play and you throw rock and I throw scissors and you win, there's about a 75% chance you're going to throw rock on your second throw.
Interesting.
Because it won. Because you think I'm going to switch it up and I'm probably going to, or you think that I'm probably going to think you're going to switch it up and go to paper and probably think that I throw scissors again. So my natural instinct was because I think that you're probably going to throw that. I'm probably going to throw paper the next time, and I will beat you 3 out of 4 times when it comes to that.
Okay, so it is still kind of a guessing game because if the person's tough psychologically.
Yeah, it is, but that's that's how I got as far as I did in that tournament. It's like I said, there was 286 people into it, and like I would go off of what they threw the first time, and that's how I would beat people.
I think that if I got to the TV round where I'm on TV, the very first thing I'm throwing is Joey from Friends, fire.
So the guy I lost to, and this is why there's a YouTube clip of it, got interviewed. Like, so we all had to record spots for ESPN prior to that starting, and so they recorded his spot, and then because of his personality, they like went to his hometown and like recorded a whole different segment with him. Like this guy's shtick was he came out in like a boxing robe and oven mitts on his hands because his hands were so hot. He had to cool them off with the oven mitts. Like that was his shtick. Come to find out, the guy was like going to like the University of Missouri, and he was like a communications major. So he was hanging off of every ESPN producer trying to get a job at ESPN. So like the guy, literally every person there hated this guy. because he was such a D-bag. Like he was just because he stayed in character literally the whole time. Like, and after we got off stage and after I had lost to him, which, I made the classic mistake. I said, if I ever play that guy, that's the one guy in this tournament I want to beat. And that's the guy I lost to. And we got off stage. He's like, hey, man, I just want to, it's just all an act and da-da-da. And I'm like, dude, you've already made your bed and nobody here likes you. And it was true.
Yeah, I guess you got to go with the showmanship. I think about, Dwight Howard wearing the cape at the dunk contest, right?
Yep.
I mean, it's going to get you the TV time. I think that's the kind of personality that even if you weren't technically in the top 16, they'd find a way to get you in there.
Yeah. I mean, it is what it is. I just like, it was just funny because they pulled us all to the side. They're like, oh, what's your nickname going to be? I'm like, I got to have a nickname? It's like, yeah, you're going to be on TV. I'm like, the big boss man. Because at the time I was a correctional officer. And they're like, yeah, no, we don't like that. And I'm like, Tori the Tank? Like, yeah, we like that. You're going to be Tori the Tank. You are now Tori the Tank. I'm like, okay, guess I'm Tori the Tank now.
They went all, what's his name? Bruce, whatever it is, from the Spider-Man movies, right? When he's like, I'm the amazing spider. He's like, that sucks. No, he's the human spider. He's like, that sucks.
The human
calls
spider.
Me amazing spider. Amazing Spider-Man.
So, yeah, I mean, no, not many people know that we had like a former, professional athlete on this show.
That's great. So now we know what happens to all those professional Rochambeau players when they retire.
You go to doing podcasts. go get a regular job.
I think you guys should change the podcast name to Rock Paper Scissors. I think that'd be great.
To Rock Paper Sports.
That's right.
All right. We are going to take our next break. When we come back from break, we're going to go off into the weeds a little bit. We're going to talk about Bucks, Kansas City Chiefs. And if we have time, we're going to talk about them boys or them bums, as I like to refer to them. But we will be back in 2 minutes.
ManHourRadio.com.
I really love that it just says "we back." I'm just at this point figured that Buck can't spell we're back.
Or I got like the little blue squiggly line because it's not grammatically correct because he didn't put the apostrophe.
So now we are going to move on to Buck's team though here. So the Kansas City Chiefs lost the Super Bowl. If you ask Buck, they're going to win every Super Bowl from here until, I don't know, Mahomes' contract is up because everybody's going to be Tom Brady now. So which Tom Brady has literally ruined football because every quarterback thinks that they need to win 7 rings now, and it's just that's not feasible.
Right. No, nobody's going to do that again.
No.
Well, I don't like to say never, but it's tough.
I mean, somebody might Robert Ory it and be like, just bounce from team to team and be semi-productive and then, win a title.
A Robert Ory quarterback. That'd be nuts. Like Ryan Fitzpatrick wins 7 rings.
Right,
7
rings. Yeah, as a backup for 7 teams. That would be awesome. That would be the greatest story. Although I am a big fan of Big Shot Bob. So I can't dog too hard, but the man, I would like to say he was a bench player, but he was like one of those role players that was amazing. Like you need a big shot and Bob would hit it.
I'm a Lakers fan. You're preaching to the choir. I mean, that Sacramento Kings series, Game 7, where the ball gets tipped out to the 3-point line, he's wide open. I mean, I started rejoicing before he even shot the ball.
Like, it's over.
It's
right. Over. Robert Ory's got the ball in his hand. I mean, you got ins with him. I've been trying to get an in with him to get him on the show.
Oh, that'd be cool. Yeah, Big Shot Bob. I bet you a lot of people want to talk to him.
Oh, who wouldn't want to talk to him? Like, non-basketball people want to talk to Big Shot Bob.
Just ask him, does anyone ever tell you look like Will Smith?
So I've been trying to work on him, and then the other one, because our show's based on almost out of there. I've been working on Glenn Robinson III too to try to get him on. But
I'd love to have Glenn Robinson II, big dog.
Right, me too. Just as a Bucks fan, so I mean, that's half the fun of doing this show is trying to line guests up and see who will talk to you and who won't.
All right. Well, hey, let's do this. Dream guest, because my dream guest on my show is Dwayne Davis. So if people don't know who Dwayne Davis is, he played Alvin Mack in the movie The Program. He was also Featherstone in Necessary Roughness. He was.
You see that says Adidas.
That's right. I taught him that.
We can say the rest of that line.
F you, doughboy. I can read. But no, so Dwayne Davis, I would love to have him on because he's played a number of athletes, a boxer, a baseball player, 2 football players. His dad is Willie Davis in the Hall of Fame, NFL Hall of Fame. His son is Wyatt Davis out of Ohio State, plays for the Vikings now.
Wow. Really?
Yep.
I just got a whole. His dad was Willie Davis, huh?
Yep. So Willie Davis was Dwayne Davis's dad, and Wyatt Davis is his son. So I'm like, man, not only could I talk to him about NFL football all day long, I'd still want to know about Alvin Mack and the inspiration behind that character because he's by far the greatest football character in movie history, in my opinion.
I would agree. Maybe. I don't know. Rick Vaughn's a close second. I love
football though.
Football movie wise, yeah, it'd be him or Shane Falco. I've watched. That's one of those movies. Like The Program, though, is another one of those. It's a sports movie that if it's on, you just watch it. It does not matter where it is in that show, you watch it.
People who tell me they haven't seen it, I tell them, like, don't even talk to me. Like, you need to go home and watch it right now.
I saw the original when it came out in the theaters when they were laying in the road reading the Sports Illustrated, and then they had to cut it. I saw it before they cut it from the movie.
I'm still surprised they haven't come out with like a 20th anniversary edition that has that scene in it. I'm surprised they're just completely done. Yeah,
they completely because people again were trying to reenact it, and I think somebody got hit by a car, and that's where they cut it.
Oh, several people did. Yeah, one person died. I think one person got like a broken leg. I'm like, come on. I mean, because of idiots, we can't show. I mean, Jackass is still on the air,
right? But they put a disclaimer on it. It says, "Don't try this at home." So, the Kansas City Chiefs lost the Super Bowl. What does Kansas City need to do to get back to the Super Bowl?
Oh, see, I thought the question was what happens for them not to make it back to the Super Bowl.
Yeah, you are correct. Yeah, if Kansas City doesn't go back to the Super Bowl, what will be the reason why they don't? I mean, that's a pretty easy question.
Well, I have several different possibilities. The first being, and this one's for you, Buck, Lamar Jackson gets back to his MVP form. because basically that Ravens defense, as always, is completely stacked. They went out and drafted Rashad Bateman to play wide receiver number 2 across from Hollywood Henderson. They've got J.K. Dobbins. They signed Todd Gurley. This team is primed and ready for a Super Bowl run. And if Lamar Jackson gets back to 2 years ago, Chiefs are out.
That's a pretty good take. The only fault I really see with the Ravens team as a whole is that they don't really have a great wide receiver core. But with the backfield and Lamar Jackson, do you really need a great wide receiver core to put up points on people? Because there's a lot of different ways that team can put up points.
Well, there are, and I think people underestimate their draft. Like I said, Rashad Bateman would be a number 1 receiver on a lot of teams. He's going to be their number 2 besides Brown. And then they go out and they draft Jason Owe, the offensive or defensive lineman, edge rusher. He's going to get after the quarterback. The real steal for them is in the 5th round. They get Sean Wade out of Ohio State. This is a guy who is projected to be a top 10 pick as a cornerback in the NFL, had a horrible senior year because he can't play outside corner. So they moved him from slot to outside. He couldn't handle it. But he's going to play slot for that Ravens team, which has 2 great corners already. This defense is primed. The running backs are primed. Again, all Lamar Jackson has to do is come out, throw for 225 yards a game, and the Ravens are going 14-2.
I was going to be like, their defense is still leaky as the day is long. Now with the issues with Frank Clark coming up, Frank Clark may not even be available to them this season. So that's a defensive leader off your defense. B, probably your best defensive player off your defense. And C, well, they're just with the heart and soul of your defense as well. So it's between him and the Honey Badger, but I don't think he even had as much pull as Frank Clark did on that defense. So if this is a reason for me, it's because they are not going to be able to score enough points because of the leaks in that defense. And I think we saw it last year. That defense was leaky last year, and it got better as the year went on. But they still, to me, did not do enough to fix the holes in that defense. Are they still going to be one of the best teams in the AFC? 100%. I just don't know if they're going to be able to get back to a Super Bowl for the 3rd straight year. People don't realize how hard it is to get to 1, let alone to try to get to 3 of them in a row. Unless you're a freaking Patriots fan, then shut up.
Which brings me to my homer take on why the Chiefs won't make it to the Super Bowl. Which is, I think that if the Patriots offense can figure it out, whether that means Mac Jones taking over day 1 as the starter and just grasping that offense with both hands and getting it, we already agreed their defense is probably going to be the best defense in the NFL this year. Their offense is going to be a run-first offense with all those running backs in the stable. So just they need a quarterback not to mess up, kind of like Tom Brady in 2001. Just don't mess up, and we're going to get to the Super Bowl. I think that this Patriots team has the makings of a Super Bowl team, but it's going to be, is Mac Jones going to be that next coming of Tom Brady? Because I really, really want a Tampa Bay, New England Super Bowl, Bill versus Tom for the ring.
Can you imagine the ratings on that? That would be the highest rated Super Bowl ever.
Well, if you believe in conspiracy theories, that's how it's going to happen because the NFL wants it too.
So that just brings me to the other conspiracy theory. Like somebody went on to Wikipedia and changed like the title of the NFC Championship game where somebody goes and plays the Green Bay Packers to go play in the Super Bowl. It said a yearly contest where a team goes and plays the Green Bay Packers and goes to the Super Bowl. I'm like, somebody paid for that, paid to do that. Sons of guns. So yeah, I'm not that confident in the Chiefs' ability to go back to a third one. It's like I said, and this is where I talk about the Tom Brady effect of people have unrealistic expectations of, we have a great quarterback, we should go to the Super Bowl. This is coming from a Packers fan that everybody here thinks that we should go to the Super Bowl every single year. Even the years that like our defense was giving up like 50 spots, it felt like on a weekly basis. Like, we're the best team in the NFL. Like, our defense couldn't stop a Pop Warner team.
They actually, I think Green Bay has a great defense. I think
they do now.
Right. I just feel like in the playoffs, I don't know what it is. I don't want to bag on Aaron Rodgers for it, but something happens in the playoffs.
Well, there again, ask Wyatt. Wyatt will put that loss solely on Kevin King giving up that touchdown right before halftime because he just got burned. Which, great. But, I don't remember what coach said it. If you're putting the fate of the game on one play, we didn't do what we were supposed to win that game anyways.
Right. I say that all the time in basketball. Yeah.
Right. So, and I believe that because it is a team effort. And if somebody makes a mistake, somebody's supposed to be there to pick it up. And for me, the turning point in that game was that, it's super cliche at this point, was when they kicked the field goal instead of going for a touchdown on fourth down when you're on the 3-yard line. That's you're saying, no, I'm going to put it on my defense to do it. That's a lot to put in defense, especially when you're right there already. And you have the MVP of the league as your quarterback, and you had Aaron Jones in your backfield, you had Tunyon as your tight end, and you had Devontae Adams. You had options to go to. And if not, you could have went to Alan Lazard or whoever else. So,
well, I like the theory of we're going to put it on our defense because you know what? Their quarterback over there, he's never been in these big games. He probably is going to choke.
Right. Yeah, and I could see that. I could see that if you were playing somebody else, but not Tom Brady. And that's the thing. And I think they did put too much on the defense at that point to try to get the stop, to get the ball back and give Aaron the chance to win that game. And as good as they are, I think that they get better this year on that defensive side too with Green Bay. But are they going to go 13-3 again? As I just said, it's hard enough to go to one Super Bowl, let alone 3 in a row. It's hard to go 13-3 3 years in a row. Right. So you have to have a lot of non-injuries go your way, and a lot of things kind of bounce your way to win that many games. And now you get the extra game in there. So are you looking for 14-3, or are you consider 13-4 a great year?
I don't know. I guess it depends on who is second place.
Right. Well, if you ask Buck, the Detroit Lions are going to go 12-6 or 12-5 or 11-6 and win the division, in typical Buck fashion.
Yeah, because Jared Goff has that kind of history.
Right. I mean, he has been to a Super Bowl.
Yeah,
he's the only Detroit Lion player probably never gone to the Super Bowl.
No, Trey Flowers.
Oh, yeah, Trey Flowers. True. Yep, I forgot about Trey. How bad does he probably want out of there now?
Well, he got paid, and that's what he was looking for, right?
Yeah, but he also thought he was going with Patricia and thought it was going to be on a great defense, and it didn't work out so well. That's the thing. The one part with the Belichick coaching tree is I really like Flores, though. I think Flores is going to be kind of the exception to the rule of the coaching tree, where some of the other guys have not had the best of luck.
Yeah, well, because it takes that go around. Even Bill didn't have the best of luck his first go around as a head coach.
Yeah,
because you got to learn from your mistakes, like we talked about early in the show. You don't just fly, right? You kind of walk into it, and especially when you've been an assistant under a guy like Parcells or a guy like Belichick, your first inclination is to go and try to be them and try to act like them and coach like them instead of coaching like yourself. I think Josh McDaniels is an offensive genius. I think that he is actually going to make an exceptional head coach someday, but he needed that Denver job to teach him, don't try to do it like Bill, do it like you.
Right. Yeah. And I think, honestly, a lot with that job, too. He got that job, he was 34?
Really
he got that job? Yeah. I mean, that's young for a head coach. That's a lot for anybody. And but even Patricia, though, you start to hear some of the rumblings now. So I don't know. We have another guy come on, Luke G, that does nothing but Detroit Lions. That's all he covers is the Detroit Lions. And a lot of the stuff he talks about is Patricia literally tried to make it the Patriot way and kind of almost outcast himself to the players.
Yep.
Kind of like how people, and I'm not going to say it, how people perceive Bill Belichick to be as a head coach, where I think Belichick is actually very much a player coach. It doesn't seem like it, but I think if his players are doing right by him, he's going to have their back. And it seems like Patricia kind of alienated that whole team.
Yeah, Bill is pro-player, anti-media. So I think that anything of people thinking that Bill is like tough on the players, it's the media, But there's also the culture there, right? Like Bill's built a winning culture there to the fact that even Reggie Wayne went there, right, and quit after a week saying it's not fun here. And I can't remember who was it. I don't know. I think winning's pretty fun, but it's a business there. When you walk in, you have to treat it like a business. Like this is no longer a game. This is no longer fun. This is you're coming here to do your job, punch a clock, do your job. That's their quote, right? And then go home.
Yeah. So speaking of your New England Patriots again, we're going to talk a little bit about Tom Brady now on the opposite side. So with the Tampa Bay Bucks, what happens if they don't make the Super Bowl? What went wrong for them?
So it could be a couple of things. Obviously, the most interesting one or the easiest way out is going to be injuries. Age gets to them. I mean, they re-signed all of their starters from the Super Bowl, which is amazing. Nobody's ever done that before. But some of those starters, like Ndamukong Suh, Jason Pierre-Paul, Golston, Levante David, they're all over 30 years old. Tom Brady's 43. He's going to be 44. So this is a very old team that could be injury prone. That's the easy way out. But the sexy way out is going to be the Rams and Matt Stafford getting that new berth in Los Angeles. The Rams defense is lights out. They are a really good defense. Aaron Donald is a freak of nature. And now you add Matthew Stafford. I think Matthew Stafford really wanted out of Detroit, and deservedly so, because he is an exceptional talent. When you watch him throw the ball, the problem is he can't throw it from his back, and he was on his back a lot. He may run into that a little bit now with Cam Akers being out for the season. He's not going to have that running back one there, but I do think that we see a resurgence from Matt Stafford, and that is who I think is the primary challenger to the Bucs. And I think that could be a reason the Bucs don't get back, is because Matt Stafford gets to the Super Bowl with the Rams.
I kind of agree again with you. Like, again, I'm going to go homer and be like, you're still forgetting about my Green Bay Packers. Still a pretty good football team there in Green Bay. And it's harder to say it when you're a fan of the team, because people are like, homer. But I try to look at things as objectively as I can. You still, for as much of a gauntlet as the AFC is, the NFC is not terrible, except for unless you're playing in the NFC East.
Well, the NFC South, I mean, you've got Jameis Winston and the Saints. So despite what Brandon says, everybody, Jameis Winston is not the next coming. And then you've got the Carolina Panthers with Sam Darnold, and you've got the Atlanta Falcons, who just look like trash. They're probably going to get the number one pick this year. So that's the gauntlet that Tampa Bay has to go through. They're going to win the NFC South probably, I'd say 14-3. And then the question is, can they get past those other teams in the NFC? Right.
And I think that could end up hurting them, the lack of solid competition, because you do basically, if they don't go 6-0 in their division, something's wrong.
Yep. And like I said, that's where it comes down to injuries. The only way they don't go 6-0 is if Brady gets hurt, or one of those key defenders gets hurt.
I don't know. Returning 22 starters, if Brady gets hurt, I'm pretty sure I could go quarterback that team. So Drew chimes in and asks, in our opinion, what would you consider to be the biggest choke play in a championship game, conference or Super Bowl? So I guess we're just going football here, because he asked for conference or Super Bowl.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good question. I'm trying to think of what would be a good choke play. And I mean,
I can think of a couple, and I'm debating them in my head right now.
Well, I mean, 28-3 is one of the biggest chokes that we could see. Well, that's not a play, though. That's not one play. It's a full game. So, I mean, we could point to Marshawn Lynch, right? Not getting the handoff against the Patriots. These are just Patriots ones, but I don't even know if it's considered a choke, because they still won 52-16. But Leon Lett putting his arms out before he crosses the goal line, and Don Beebe knocking the ball out of his hand. So I'm trying to think. I can't think of a play off the top of my head that cost the game.
See, and right away, I'm going back to 1991, Scott Norwood pushing it right to lose the Super Bowl against the Giants. Like, that was my immediate thought. Like, is that so much a choke job? No, but is it probably somewhat with nerves? Yes. And that's Super Bowl. And I kind of thought in the conference championship game, the Ernest Biner fumble, they had that game won. All Biner had to do was cross the goal line and he fumbled. That I don't think I've ever felt as bad for a player as I did for him. And mostly because I'm an underdog guy. And I was cheering so hard for Cleveland to win that game. That just tells you how old I am that I remember that game.
And this is one that'll be close to both of our hearts, although not my heart. But how about maybe don't kick the ball at Desmond Howard this time?
That literally shifted the complete momentum of that game. It was over after that point. I thought it was over after, Andre Rison went streaking down the field, but New England put up a pretty good fight and started clawing back, and then Des took the kick and game was over. Yep. Probably the only time a special teamer will ever win a Super Bowl MVP, in my opinion, but
again, I wouldn't say never, because you could see somebody get a couple kickback returns, and usually your special teams guys too. They also play on offense, so you could see like a Dante Hall. I mean, back in the day, right, returning a couple kicks, and then also maybe catching a touchdown pass.
Right. Yeah. But the Packers didn't let Desmond on the field much as a receiver.
Oh, true. Even though he's a Heisman winner, huh?
Even though he was a Heisman winner. I would say that Charles Woodson had a better chance of catching passes on the offense as a Packer than Des did. They did let him on the field. He did contribute on offense, just not a lot. He was at that time, he was like the fifth receiver on there. You had Antonio Freeman. I mean, hell, we had Don Beebe at that point too, which he was towards the end of his career, but he was still faster than 90% of the guys in the league at that point.
There's a lot of respect for the special team guys, and I think that they all get that one play maybe every 4 weeks that gets thrown in the playbook for them. At least once every 4 weeks, the Patriots throw the ball to Matthew Slater. They just do. It's something that just to give them a bone,
The one I remember most, and you'll probably remember, the guy made his living. He made an entire career off of special teams, is Steve Tasker.
Yep.
And his last professional game was against the Green Bay Packers, and he got ejected, I believe, on the opening kickoff. He had said he's retiring, he's hanging it up. And I want to say it was the opening kickoff. I could be completely wrong in that. I remember him getting ejected because somebody did something he didn't like, and he got up and just started swinging. He got kicked out of the game. I'm like, either that was totally intentional, because what's the NFL going to do? Suspend him?
Right.
It was his last game. So I don't know if he did it on purpose because he'd never been suspended before. It was like, I'm done after this. Doesn't matter. Just check it off the list.
YOLO.
So I don't know, for whatever reason, I just remember that play. And he was always like a guy I pulled for, because I think he was by trade, he was a receiver. And I think I don't know. When we go to break right now, I'm going to look up Steve Tasker's career stats. And we are going to have those stats.
I'm going to guess 17 career receptions. That's what I'm going with.
17. In the chat, let us know what you think the career stats for Steve Tasker were, because you're going to have about 2 minutes here to think of it. And I will let you know when we come back. And we will also have sports talk, shop talk. So any of your questions you have for myself or for Wayne, reach out, let us know, ask us your question, and we'll gladly answer it. We'll be back in 2.
Hey there, Mr. White T-shirt wearer dude. Mr. White shirt wearer dude. Do you wear the same shirt every day? Same shirt every day. Do you do the same thing every day? The same thing every day. Don't you worry, Mr. White shirt wearer dude. Now with Man Hour merch, you can spice up your style each and every day. From hats to beanies to shirts, we got you covered, Mr. White shirt wearer dude. Shop at manhourradio.com. T-shirts start at $15. Shop today.
Why, thank you, manhourradio.com, for this awesome merch. Hats, t-shirts, $15. You can't go wrong.
pretty obvious in that one. Dak's coming back off. You got Tom Brady, and did I mention 22 starters coming back?
When I say Lamar Jackson is trash, I'm not saying he is the worst quarterback in the league, but he is definitely not the best quarterback in the league. When you say somebody is trash, it is based off the perception of the general public.
And we are back. And with us being back, we have Steve Tasker's career stats.
Oh, let's hear him.
So you said, how many receptions did you say?
17.
Not too far off. 51
Okay.
career receptions. But he played from 1985 to 1997. So over a 12-year career, he had 51 catches for 779 yards for an average of 15.3 yards per catch, which actually isn't terrible.
Yeah, he's got some speed.
And 9 touchdowns. And he actually had some rushing stats too. He rushed the ball 20 times for 130 yards and no touchdowns, but his carry average was 6.5.
Jeez.
Maybe they should have made him a running back.
Bo Jackson.
Right? And I wish it had his special team stats on here, but it does not. Like, I would like to know what his career special team stats were, because obviously he was a career special teamer. So 51 for 779. Like, I actually saw that. I'm like, God, like that's a pretty good season if like they would actually threw him the ball, maybe.
Yeah. Ends up being like 4 grabs a year with a couple career highs of 5 or 6.
Yeah, I think his career high for receptions, I think his career high for a year was 17. And
Okay.
he had 17, excuse me, I think he had 17 and 14 in back-to-back years. So 31 of his career 51 catches came in a 2-year stretch. Andre Reed must have got hurt or something.
Probably. I do remember him playing. Like, I remember even like, you remember the old like Sega Genesis games? I remember Tasker being in there.
Yep. Yeah. I used to love all those games. I used to remember, like, I used to try to run the Bills hurry up offense and get it, because on the Sega Genesis you could screw up the commentator and they'd be like 3 plays behind if you were running like hurry up offense. They'd still be talking about stuff that happened 2 minutes ago.
So the cheat that we used to use is we would come out in a punt block formation and you'd sack the quarterback in a nano blitz like in 2 seconds. But the old games like that, like there was just certain things like you could just do. If you went insane, like you could just sack the quarterback every single play. Like, because I would do stuff like that, like put it in punt block, bring the returner up and like shoot one of the gaps and just go straight through the gap because there's nobody there to block them. We used to play, it was the Joe Montana football game, 1992. And we would play it on the Sega Genesis. And my parents' friend Bill lived with us. He was like 34, right? But I was a kid. So, I mean, to me, he was an adult, even though I look back at 34 now and I was 34. But he was an adult to me. And he used to keep notebooks in his room and he would track his stats for every single game in the notebook. So he would go through and try to like game plan for the computer's defense the following week.
That's some dedication right there. Like I used to try to do that like on Super Nintendo with Ken Griffey Jr. Baseball. Like I used to try to do that too. I'd like, okay, my team, and I'd keep all the stats and like figure out batting averages and my home runs and my extra base hits and all that stuff. Like I used to try to figure it all out. Like the one thing I was never good at, like actually, probably because I was a kid and I just really didn't care about school or math and I could never figure out ERAs.
Oh, okay. That's an easy one. You know how to do it now?
Now I can.
Okay.
I punch it into Google and tell me how to figure it out.
I guess that's the way to do anything now, huh?
Right? Nowadays, it's just ask Google, or you're like, Alexa, how do you figure out ERA?
Here's something I found on the web.
Alexa, stop.
For those of you listening who don't know, it's earned runs allowed times 9 divided by innings pitched.
Yep. Yeah, now it's easy, but back then I didn't know. I was like, I don't know how to figure that out. I don't care. Did I throw a no-hitter?
I used to throw you try to get that no-hitter, and your guy would have a really good curveball that would curve like 8 feet at the beginning of the game. At the end of the game, he's tired and it's not moving at all.
It's like it moves enough to go right down the middle of the plate.
He's just like, please don't hit it out of the park.
I'm trying to remember the name of the other one. There was another baseball game. It was like there was stuff like you could have stadiums in outer space, and you could like launch the ball in like out of the galaxy. And I can't.
Was this the one where the robots used to play against each other? Like
yes.
You throw like 170 mile an hour fastball.
Yes.
Okay, I can't remember the name of it, blaster ball or something. I don't know.
Yeah, I couldn't remember. But I used to love playing that game. All the sport, like the old school sport, like the sports games, literally got too complicated for me to play anymore. Except for like MLB Road to the Show. Like I can't do Madden anymore. Like, oh, you got the hit stick and you got to do, whatever. And I'm like, nope, too complicated.
Oh yeah, it's like a quarter away of the round, then you got to go down, then another quarter of the way. I forget that. I just want to hit the X button and do whatever.
Right, X button, turbo, and L1 to stiff arm the guy as he tries to hit me. Let me just jump up like Tecmo Bowl style. Like I took the Bears, and if you just throw the ball in the air, I'm just going to intercept it.
I remember playing baseball on the PS1. We played Triple Play 97, which was the first game I got with that. And
this is the first EA title, wasn't it?
I think it might have been. And we used to laugh so hard because they had commercials every 7th inning stretch. And the commercial would be different every game that you played. So they'd have stupid things like the House of Saws conveniently located next to the House of Planks. And our favorite one, and it's so stupid to this day, but I remember laughing so hard when they said triplicate life insurance because you can never expect to predict the predictably unexpected.
So it's like, to me, like the sports games are too commercialized. Like nobody has fun with them anymore. Like now it's all because of a lot of it is because name, image, and likeness stuff for the professional athletes and stuff like that. Like NFL Blitz was freaking amazing when they used to play that, or make the game because it was just so out there, over the top. What was it, like 5-on-5 or whatever?
Yep.
And just like I could pick up the quarterback and pile drive him or give him a power bomb. Like I loved that type of stuff. Like, and then they got rid of all that stuff. I mean, I think Madden tried to like incorporate something with Blitz a couple of years ago. If I remember correctly, like they had basically a kind of a Blitz game mode.
Yeah, they tried to reboot it, I think, at one point, and that's kind of, I think, what NFL 2K is going to be. NFL 2K 22 or 23, whatever it is that they have coming out, because they're not allowed to do a simulation game. That's still owned by EA, but they're going to be doing a football game, and so I think it's probably going to be something similar to an arcade-style football game.
Which I will probably play. I will probably buy it. I will probably play it. So I don't know if you would, but I'm all on board with that. Like the old one, there was the one that was nothing but robots on Sega, and I can't remember the name of that one.
I don't remember that.
It was all robots. Like the one like quarterback had like a howitzer cannon for an arm. And, like it was all different. Like you could upgrade your robots or buy different robots for your football team and stuff like that.
Oh, that's fun. No,
like it was called like Cyberball or something like that.
I guess that makes sense. I remember when I think of robots playing, not that they were robots, but you remember the movie with Arnold Schwarzenegger, The Sixth Day, I think it was. And the very beginning is a football scene. The quarterback breaks his neck, and then they just clone him. But he had like this visor on that was showing him all kinds of computer graphics, like Tony Stark's visor, about what was going on in the play.
I don't remember that one. I'm gonna have to look that one up.
Oh, yeah, it's all about cloning. So it's Arnold Schwarzenegger, and he dies in a helicopter accident, and then they clone him.
Yes. I do remember. Okay, I know what you're talking about. No, yes.
And then called the sixth day because those of us who are theology experts knew on the sixth day God created man. And so that's why it's called the sixth day, because they're cloning humans.
Yes. See, we kept it sports related, but we got the only other thing I know about, and that's video games.
Oh, yeah. I can ride the merry-go-round.
Oh, me too. Like, so like a couple weeks ago, I was on vacation, and me and my best friend and another buddy of ours, and then a friend of mine, we were having a couple of glasses of scotch, sitting around shooting the breeze. It was after game 2 of the NBA Finals, and we busted out the 64, and we were playing Bond.
Nice.
That game was amazing back then, not so much now.
Oh, yeah, any of those
We're
games.
like, I can't even aim. Why is my guy just looking at the ground? How do you fire?
I still remember the transition. So in Nintendo, we had double dribble basketball, which would be, when you got up to the hoop, like you're going to take a dunk, it would go to a cut scene of somebody dunking it. Like you couldn't actually dunk the ball. And then when Sega came out, they had Lakers versus Celtics. Yep. And I remember like Michael Jordan could do reverse dunks, and like, you're like, wow, this is the most amazing thing ever. But now, after playing like NBA Live 2021, right, you go back to playing Lakers versus Celtics, and you're like, this sucks.
Well, too, in like double dribble, you could, what was it? You could go all the way up to the top of the screen, jump up and jump out of bounds and let the ball go, and it went in every time. Like you could just sit there. Yeah, so you could, because it was so easy to steal that ball in the game too. Like you just basically had to walk by the person. Like there wasn't really fouls, so you could go to the top of the screen and just like, and just let the ball go from out of bounds and just go in every single time.
Well, I will say this is that I remember back in high school, we'll say 1990 blank, we used to have guaranteed fist fight would break out playing NBA Jam Tournament Edition. Just so many fights. They're just screaming at each other, people being held back from each other.
See, that was us with Mario Kart and Bond. Goldeneye, yeah, guaranteed. That was not ending well for anybody ever.
Yeah, but it's fun memories.
So Drew does chime in here quick before we get ready to go here. They're rebooting that robot baseball game. Nice. I hope they do. I'm going to have to, once we go off air, I'm going to look up what the name of that game was, because it is now completely bugging me. I just remember, like, I always play in the out in space stadium, because you could just crush the ball. Like every time was a home run.
Yeah, like 11,000 foot home run.
Right. Like it's just like 11,000 feet. That should be infinity. Dude, did it hit a planet? All right. So that is going to do it for us tonight. Wayne, thanks for coming on. Thanks for doing this. I think we had a pretty good show. We kind of got off in the weeds, but you know what? We covered everything that we wanted to cover. So we got it done. Absolutely. A blast. Can't wait to do it again. All right. And before we go, tell them where they can find you one more time, Wayne. Sure. Infinity Sports Podcast on Facebook, Infinity Sports Podcast on Instagram, and Infinity at Sports Infinity 5 on Twitter. We are the Infinity Sports Podcast. You can find us on any podcast platform. Look for the gold Infinity logo with sports underneath it. All right. And with that, Man Our Nation, rise up.